Hi there, my name is Chuck Rozanski and I'm the owner of Mile High Comics Inc., the largest comic book retailer in America. We're based here in Denver, Colorado, and today we're on Groovey.TV.
Hey, this is Groovy. I'm here with the legendary Chuck Rozanski here at Mile High Comics, Jason Street Store. How are you, sir?
Well, I'm a little tired. I just finished doing a benefit auction where we raised $4,000 for Freedom Service dogs, and they help the handicapped with things like the dogs will help people with things that they've dropped, and turning on lights for like veterans who have been have post-traumatic stress and can't go into darkened rooms and things like that. Wow. And so it's a great organization.
That's really cool. How did you get hooked up with them? Why did you choose that organization, I guess?
Well, I'm a part of a group called the Imperial Court of the Rocky Mountain Empire, and actually I'm Prince Royal for that group, which is the #2 position on the mail line. And we raise money for charitable causes all the time. Started off as completely a drag group, people that put on drag shows. And since then, they've taken in straight allies like myself. And now we're sort of a big performance group, but we raise about $100,000 a year for kids' causes and things like that.
That is so cool. That's really cool. What's the next event for that?
Let's see. The next event, gosh, we're going to be doing a poker tournament here on the 13th of June, where we're going to be raising money to feed the homeless. And that's going to be a 64-player Texas Hold'em tournament, sort of like the World Series of Poker, and it's going to be here at Mile High Comics. So that's a major event that I'm hosting. That
is really cool. Are you a good poker player?
I'm getting better again. I got sick with West Nile about 12 years ago, and prior to that I'd been sort of a poker shark, but I had encephalitis and I got really, really sick, and so it took a long time for my cognitive abilities to come back. So no, they're okay now. I've gone from being a lousy player back to being a good player.
That's awesome. I'm still at the lousy player level, so I'd get my butt kicked in the tournament.
Well, you never know. It depends on how the cards fall, because you can think you're a great player, but if you get crap cards, or more importantly, if the person across from you gets slightly better, you're done.
Exactly. All right, man. So, like, we're leading up here to the whole Denver Comic Con thing. What special events do you have here for leading up to the con?
Well, we have two events. The first one is actually an Imperial Court function that I'm doing, where I'm having Lou Ferrigno come in, and we're actually having a drag show here on the Thursday night before Denver Comic Con. It's limited to 75 people only, because that's all the free photographs that Lou would sign for me. And every person who donates $25 will get in. They'll get free refreshments, and they'll be able to meet Lou Ferrigno. Now, if you want a photo with him, or if you want a personalized autograph, Lou charges for that. Sure. But if you want to just do a meet and greet and get a signed photo, $25 will do it. And you get a drag show, which will be 10 of the best performers in Denver operating here at Mile High Comics on our stage. The very next night, we'll be having our huge Denver Comic Con opening night party here. And the opening night party, last year we had between 3,000 and 5,000 people that showed up. And it was huge. I mean, guys like, you know, we had Neil Adams last year and George Perez and people like that. But also we had a huge cosplay drag show where all the queens in Denver put together outfits that were related to comics, fantasy, or gaming. And there were a lot of our customers that were a little trepidatious about that. Turned out to be the hit of the show. The kids loved it. Everybody loved it. And they left sort of the gender issues at the door, but the performances were bomb. And so it was great. If you want to see some of them, they're on YouTube under Mile High Comics. You can see me doing a version of Kryptonite by 3 Doors Down that will blow you away. You'd be amazed what a 60-year-old guy can do when he puts his mind to it.
Do you play a lot of music?
I do a lot of performances. And so when you're doing drag performances, you're primarily lip syncing, but then you have to really have stage presence, and that can be a challenge.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
Yeah, but I like performing as well as selling things, so it's a lot of fun.
What's your next performance coming up then?
I don't know at this particular moment. I have to, as Prince Royal, I have to perform out of state. So I probably will be performing in Albuquerque here in about 4 weeks.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
What event would that be?
That's coronation for their court. For the Imperial Court, there are 70 courts around the country, and there's 30,000 members, and each court has an emperor, an empress, a prince royal, and a princess royale. And so we are obliged to travel. It's like interlocking circles, and so we travel between our courts, and that's what we do to have fun, and also we raise money. Like I said, we raised $100,000 for charity last year.
That is really, really cool. You know, I mean, you're obviously extremely successful to be like giving to the community and working with these different organizations. It's really cool.
Well, you know, success is kind of hard to measure because I work for my bankers and for Diamond Distributing mostly every day, okay, but the charitable work that I do is good for your heart, and that's what really, it makes me happy. It's like the money that we'll be collecting from when Lou is here. That'll all be going to the Denver Children's Advocacy Center, which is a local group based on South Federal that has 3 houses where they treat kids that have been sexually abused or who have been witnesses to a major crime. This is run in conjunction with the Denver Police Department and Denver Social Services, and so all the money from when Lou is here will be going to that. And so these are good things.
They're really good things, really good things. Getting back to the comic books, one question I've always wanted to ask you, is there any like holy grail out there that like even you have not achieved, you haven't seen, you haven't touched? And
No,
there's nothing. That is so awesome.
No, I've owned pretty much every comic book that's ever been printed. I mean, a few of the early ones I haven't had, like Famous Funnies #1 and things like that. But, you know, Detective 27, Batman 1, Wonder Woman 1, Action 1, Marvel Mystery 1, I've owned them all. Yes. You know, most of them I got in the Edgar Church collection, but I've also had copies independent from that. I've sold over $200 million in comics during my career, and, you know, all I've got to show for it are some wonderful children and a great wife and this building. And so this is sort of my fortress of not-so-solitude.
Right. But, you know, people do love you, and I know your employees love you, and, you know, you're a good part of the community, too. I mean, you've done good work.
Well, I try to do good work. You know, whenever you are in a public position and you're having to make decisions, you can make yourself a lightning rod, and heaven knows there's enough trolls on the planet. I mean, you don't have to worry about finding people to hate you if you put yourself out there. But at the same time, I find that when I go out and about, when we ship comics to people through our online business, and we ship a lot of comics, we always brighten someone's day. And so it's just this wonderful thing where essentially we sell happiness. And I've asked people at conventions, you know, have you ever gotten a box from Mile High Comics show up at your doorstep and it hasn't brightened your day? And no, it's universal. And that's a good feeling. I mean, you get up every day and you're trying to make other people happy. What the hell? Not a bad day.
Well, my personal story is that I grew up in small town in Wisconsin. I got all my comic books from a little local hardware store.
Oh boy. Yeah.
And every issue had Mile High Comics advertisements in it.
Yeah.
So for me, I was like, this is Mecca kind of thing. I've always wanted to be here. I've always wanted to, you know, be involved, and now I'm meeting you. So you're making me happy. Just this.
Oh, that's cool. Well, you know, I created those ads intentionally, and I actually sold off some of the key books from the Edgar Church collection in order to do that first ad, because I wanted to monetize comics and comic collecting in the eyes of an entire generation of young people. And it's astounding how many people relate to me exactly what you've said, because prior to seeing one of my ads where it listed the prices for comics, people would have a bag of comics in their closet, or they'd inherit some from their brother or their uncle or whatever, and they were fun, but they didn't have any material kind of value to them. And then they started seeing my price lists, and it was like, ooh, I could look that up. And I've had people as important in the comics business as Jim Lee tell me that I was his inspiration for actually getting serious about comics. And when you hear that, it says, okay, all right, I may have had to give up the Batman 1 and the Sensation 1 and the All-Star 8 and all these other great comics in order to pay for those first ads, but I created great good in doing that. And you know, good. You know, everybody has good days and bad days, but if at the end of the day I'm known for having done some good, then that's good enough for me.
You absolutely have, absolutely. Getting back to Comic-Con quick, what can people expect at the Mile High Comics booth at Comic-Con?
Well, we've been working very hard to put together a selection of 100,000 books that we're taking to Comic-Con, mostly one of each, and they'll be completely in order, very easy to access. And it's probably the best convention booth that we have taken to any show anywhere in the world. And so it's going to be cool. That's not to say it's not a work in progress, because we try to make ourselves better every single day. But our booth at this year's Comic-Con is going to be excellent.
That's so cool. And last year's was amazing too. It was huge. So I can't wait to see this year.
Yeah, this year's quite a bit better.
So cool. And a couple things. You got some comics sitting on your desk right here? What do we got?
Well, what we've got here is my indolence, or at least my preoccupation with other things, because we have some really nice older comics here that I've just never gotten around to taking downstairs and putting in the store. And, you know, they're really cool comics. This is our own Mile High Comics variant of Star Wars #1. We're doing the first 6 issues, and we've just applied to do the next 6. So we would have, essentially, you can get a complete run of the regular Star Wars comics, or you can get a complete run of the Mile High Star Wars comics.
Go with the Mile Highs.
Yeah, well, I think that our print runs are limited to 3,000, so, right. And the print run on #1 of the regular edition was 987,000. So which do you think is more collectible? I mean, and it's just kind of, but yeah, like this Joker #1 is probably a 9.6, a little bit of dinging up here, but you know, when you get something that's a Silver Age book and it's a 9.6, you know, that's cool. Nice. And then Steve Ditko, wackiest man in comics, but also an incredible artist. Did you know Ditko worked as a bondage artist in between doing Spider-Man?
Really?
Yeah, he worked at night doing bondage books, and that's why if you ever look at the early Spider-Man issues and you see those really great articulated poses, that's because he was one of the world's best figure men, and he was doing bondage at night. I've seen some of his bondage work, really good.
Wow.
So
I'll have to check that out.
Oh, yeah, if you can find it. It's not published.
Really?
Yeah, no. You have to go back all the way back to the early 1960s to see this stuff.
Wow.
So none of it's in print.
Wow, that is so cool.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Sure.
Cheers.
I can't wait for Comic-Con. This is going to be a whole lot of fun. We are so blessed to have what I think is arguably the best comic book convention in the world in Denver, because I've been to every San Diego Comic-Con but the first 2, and I can tell you that Denver is better.
That is so cool, because everyone goes, oh, San Diego, you know, like that's like Denver's nothing because San Diego is so much bigger or whatever. But I'm like, no, Denver's is really cool.
Well, Denver's is actually a Comic-Con.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a huge difference with San Diego, which is primarily a media and entertainment industry vehicle. And as such, I think it's brilliant. I love San Diego Comic-Con, and I want to keep going there if I can. But I just said comic book convention.
Yeah.
Okay, as a comic book convention, Denver is awesome.
Yeah, it truly is awesome. I love it. Can't wait to see you there, man.
All right.
Cheers.
Thanks
for
taking the time.
Absolutely. Hey, this is Groovey. I'm here with Chuck Rozanski, the grand poobah of Mile High Comics. Thank you so much. Bye.